Welcome to Graded Podcasts.
Jean de Villiers is a former South African professional rugby player and Springbok Captain. He represented South Africa in the winning Rugby World Cup squad in 2007. As Head of Philanthropy at Citadel Investment Services since 2016, he now aims to provide long-term sustainability to South African projects within the fields of education, health, housing, community, and conservation. He also shares his learnings and experiences on various platforms as a leadership and motivational speaker. Jean has inspired individuals across the globe who see sports as a possible profession. Welcome, Jean. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Yeah, Ben, I'm good. Thank you very much. Lovely sunshiny day in Cape Town. So this time of year is pretty special around Cape Town, eh?
Yeah, big time. So to start us off, could you tell us a bit about your childhood and your environment growing up?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a tough one to start with. Eh? I mean, at my age, you hardly remember your childhood. No, joking. It's look, I'm at my home at the moment, doing this call, and the pretty cool thing is I moved here 5 years ago, and it's literally about 600 meters from the house that I grew up in. To come back home and spend time here now and have my kids grow up in the same kind of community and environment is pretty cool, and it brought back a lot of memories. So, I had a very, very fortunate upbringing. In South Africa, I think there's kind of two worlds that you live in, and it's certainly not equal for everyone. So my upbringing was a very fortunate one. Always got support from my parents. But since I can remember, rugby was always the thing that I wanted to do growing up one day, even though rugby was not professional when I grew up. So sport was always part of it. Rugby was always at the top of that. And I spent my holidays and days, just spent it doing sport and being active and mostly being outdoors. So, yeah, I suppose if you ask me what do I remember of my childhood, I remember Paul and I remember rugby.
How did your environment influence your drive for success as a rugby player?
I think the environment certainly that I grew up in, it introduced me to rugby. My dad played rugby as well, so what happens then is his network, his friends, his community. Rugby is always kind of relevant whenever people come over, and then you grow up in that environment. You get introduced to the sport in this case, or whatever it might be. But in my case, rugby, and then you kind of grow into it. And I think from a very early age, I just got obsessed with the game of rugby, and knew all the players and the teams and the stats and the whatever, even though it wasn't that readily available back then when I grew up. You didn't have the internet, you didn't have Google, those kind of things. But I just loved it, and I suppose the benefit then eventually when I realized, okay, well, I'm actually pretty decent at this game, was that I had, through my parents' network and through the community that I grew up in, I had access to people that I could bounce ideas off, that I could get good coaching from, etc., etc. So, definitely the environment that I grew up in was one that was very beneficial for me. Never pushed into doing it. I think all of it always came internally. It was something I really loved and wanted to do every single day. And if anything, I think my parents had to kind of pull me back at times when I would leave home at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 7 p.m. I wouldn't be home yet, and my mom would come find me in the rugby field, and I kind of be in trouble because I was meant to be at home, far earlier than that. So, I never pushed into doing it.
When would you say your build-up to success actually began? What was the turning point?
Look, I don't think you can put a day or a date or an actual event to it. I think it's something that progresses over time. Certainly in sport. So it's a difficult one. But I suppose if I had to answer, it's probably the day that I got my first contract. When you eventually became a professional at doing something. Where you get paid to do it. And And again, that's something that came to me, at an early age. So my last couple of months of school, I was already getting paid to play rugby. So I got contracted straight out of school, and then first year out of school, played age group level still, and then kind of the second year out of school, things started from a senior level, to play rugby. So I'd say that was probably the turning point. But I think it's not often where you say, okay, that's the day where everything changed and whatever. I think you kind of progress through it in life, and then once you go into, and certainly when I went into my career as a professional player now, you kind of have this dream of things will happen, things will be successful, it'll go well, you'll be super successful. But the reality is that life doesn't work out like that, and there's a hell of a lot of adversity that you will face in time, whether you're a rugby player, whether you're a businessman, whether you're whatever. That's just life. And I think going through those things, going through adversity, actually, that's what shapes you. That's what makes you the person that I am today. And I think those are the moments that you grow through as well. And a lot of people, they can't make it through those tough times. But certainly for me, it was fantastic learning.
You're obviously a Springbok legend. What are some of the biggest sacrifices you've made to achieve your success?
Look, I think like any job, I won't say, I don't know if it's a sacrifice. I don't know if it's just a decision that was made, but you can never have a perfect life. You can never have, be with your friends all the time, have the social element of growing up and, let's say, varsity and kind of growing into that. And then also be able to be successful in a career that you choose and really be committed to that, So I think sacrifices probably came later in my career, where I was still traveling a hell of a lot, and my wife and I were starting a family, and the kids were small, so for them the first couple of years of life for my kids, that's probably what I sacrificed, not being here during that time. But again, it's something that we knew would be the case when you started a family, and it wasn't something that was forced upon me. It's a decision that you make, and I need to live with those decisions. So sacrifices, yeah, I don't know. I think it's more just decisions that you make in life, and you miss out on certain stuff to be able to achieve something in a different field, and that's what you need to live by. So I won't say sacrifices, but I certainly made a lot of mistakes during my career and during my life, and you need to be able to learn from that. And luckily, I can do that.
You were the captain of the Springboks. How would you describe your journey from teenager to team leader?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the reality, and people that might be watching that's not from South Africa and that might not even know rugby. Rugby is a big thing in South Africa, and us as South Africans, we've kind of been on a journey as a country, and rugby has played a vital role in being able to shape this country into the country that it is today. And you take a sport, like rugby, and it's really played an integral part in all of that. So when you get selected to then eventually one day represent your country and play for the Springboks, it's way more than just playing a rugby game. It's way more than just 80 minutes on a Saturday, chasing an oval ball around. It's more than that because of the history of the game and because of the history of the country. So a lot of the times it's more what you do even between the 80 minutes, in a week leading up to a game, off the field, with the fans, with the sponsors, with the people of South Africa than the Saturday itself. The being successful on the field kind of creates the other thing as well. But that's something that's really important, is understanding the role of a Springbok in South Africa. So when I got selected to play for South Africa, that was that was amazing. And I played basically, 9 years, almost 10 years for the Springboks before I became the captain. So when I eventually then became the captain, I knew what it was about. I knew what the environment was about. I was able to learn from the captains that I played under, and then kind of put my own kind of touch to my captaincy. But also understanding that you now suddenly very much, you're not just part of this environment, you're not just part of this team, but you actually play a vital role. And it's a lot of the time it's the coach and the captain that would be the voice and the faces a lot of the time for the team. So, whatever you say, especially, it needs to represent the team as a whole, and it needs to inspire as well. Not all the time, but certainly over a period of time, you need to be able to create something, and whatever you say needs to be able to bring all the fans and South African citizens closer to this team, so that they feel that they're actually part of it. So it's a big step from being just a player to being the captain. A massive responsibility and an incredible privilege, and something that I really enjoyed. But yeah, there were some really tough times, but the good times, outweigh the bad times by far. And it was a time in my life that I really enjoyed.
You discussed how big the passion for rugby is in South Africa. What does it actually feel like running out onto the field with the Springboks in front of a full stadium?
It's amazing. People ask me these days, do you still miss the game? Do you still feel like playing and all of that? And to be brutally honest, I don't really miss it, purely because my body is just stuffed. I don't think I'll be able to take all those knocks. I'm sort of just watching games these days. But what you miss is, exactly what you explained there. Running out at a packed Newlands or a packed Ellis Park or wherever, and you just hear the passion and the pride, I suppose, from the fans when you run out, and so that element, and then second to that, and that I always loved was singing the national anthem. And I actually never really sang the anthem. I just used to listen, because that sound coming towards you and knowing that all these thousands of people are supporting you and are backing you, that's pretty special. And the adrenaline you get from that is just amazing. So those are the elements that you miss, because it's a high that you feel, without being able to take any substances or anything. You get this adrenaline and you really feel on top of the world. And it's something that you get addicted to, I suppose. And you want to work harder just to be able to do that again, and make sure that the roar is even louder next time, because you played so well the previous time. So you miss that, and it's certainly the highlights of a player when you're able to run out, packed stadium, sing the national anthem, and just hear the beauty of that.
Is there a difference between a home and away game when it comes to running out and singing the anthem and stuff?
Yeah, big time. It is, and I think no one has ever been able to put their finger on it, what the actual difference is in performances. But you just see in terms of results that teams tend to, if you take teams that's on the same level, they tend to win more at home than away from home. And I think it's that kind of support that you get, that feeling of security, of all the people around you, and then the people supporting you. So there is a difference. Obviously, the noise levels are far different as well. When we play in South Africa, you can hardly hear the guy next to you sing the national anthem. And when you play away from him, sometimes you actually want to close your ears, because the guy next to you is singing so badly and off tune. And that's probably why I didn't sing. But there might not be a lot of supporters that's actually singing and supporting you. So it's a totally different experience playing at home or away from home.
Do you find that the fans are part of motivation during the game?
Yes. So I won't say they're your motivation during a game. Certainly pre-game and post-game, there's a hell of a lot of motivation that you get from the fans. during a game, what I found is sometimes you grow on that. You feel that energy. When you're down and you hear the crowd getting behind you and supporting you and that kind of thing, it actually lifts you. And even though you might be tired, it pushes you to make that extra tackle or just run a little bit faster or get off the ground a little bit quicker. And when you're up and the crowd gets behind you as well, again, then you just feel on top of the world and everything's, all the passes sticks and suddenly you feel faster and you feel more nimble and you can tackle harder and you don't feel the pain and all of that. So there's a massive element of improvement when you're playing in front of a home crowd, and the South African crowds and the South African stadiums are just built for moments like that, and we're extremely fortunate to have that in our country.
Are there any other ways that you are able to stay motivated? Or strategies?
Look, and it's kind of something that throughout my career, you got to learn as well, and they were shared by coaches and psychologists and I suppose strategic thinkers and all of that is being able to stay in the moment. So I don't think motivation increases during a game, but you need to stay on task. And I've shared this a lot of times when I was captain. I would always say last message to the team before we run out for the start of the game is know your job, do your job. And it's literally as simple as that. You need to understand what's expected of you on any given day in that game, and then you need to go out and implement that. So if you get that right, if you know what you need to do, and if you go and you implement that, and everybody does that, usually then you get the right result. And if you don't, then you know that the strategy that you pulled prior to the game was not the right one. If you do not know what your job is and still you implement well, but you're implementing what's not expected of you, then sometimes you get the wrong result as well, because now someone else needs to do your job. And vice versa. If you know your job, but you're not implementing it well, and that happens, mostly when you lose, that is the case where everybody knows their job, but it's the implementation of that that's not helping, or that you're not getting right, then usually you lose the game. So in terms of strategy in a game to be able to win eventually, is just to stick to my job and implement my job better on the field. And then just to be aware of what's going on, to be aware of things happening in the game that maybe you planned for, but now it's working differently, and then being able to adapt to that. But yeah, techniques or things that I did to stay in the moment was just to be able to focus on what is expected of me, and then to be able to go and implement that.
I'm going to go back to your school life. How did your school influence your rugby career?
Also massively. Again, went to a school that is very much renowned for its rugby. And I suppose when I was still at school, we were definitely one of the top 10 schools, I suppose, in South Africa. But I think throughout my schooling career, and certainly post that, we've really established ourselves as one of the top rugby schools in South Africa, and great traditions at our school at Paul Gymnasium, and we've been fortunate to deliver some amazing rugby players over the years. So the fact that you go to a school where you're getting good coaching from a young age, and that you're playing with guys that's really competitive and really good at playing rugby as well, I think it just pushes you to do even better. And we always just look forward to, the easy games like Bishops and those kind of teams.
Oh, my word.
No, I'm just joking. I obviously knew that you were from Bishops. It was always, I still have a friend to this day called Haldane Luskin.
I know you're joking, but I mean, when we go play you guys, you always get nervous. I mean, you smoke us every time. I think this year you beat us about 50-10 or something ridiculous. But that's beside the point. We're editing that out.
No, but what I wanted to say, the beauty of sport as such, and rugby, and especially the schoolboy rugby in the Western Cape, is you make friends at that level as well. So I was going to say, so my opposite, the centre that played for Bishops in Maya was a guy by the name of Haldane Luskin, and he went on to play for Wales internationally. And to this day, we're still friends as well. So it's not just the results that you focus on. And I was only joking with that comment.
No, of course. No, me too. Well, I wasn't joking about us being nervous arriving at your campus, but anyway, how do you handle stress and pressure as a rugby player? Because I can imagine when you're playing for the Springboks, you must have like an insane amount of talent coming through and pushing for your place. How do you handle the pressure and stress?
Yeah, I think again, if you want to, if you're always striving to be better, and wanting to be at the best of whatever you are doing, there will be competition throughout. And I think you need to be able to thrive in those circumstances, in understanding that competition is a good thing, and that you can rise above that. You can work harder. You can work more on your game to improve your game, and by doing that, you can test yourself against the competition, and hopefully win that battle and then improve again and again and again. And I think that consistency through time is way more important than just looking at an isolated case and saying, well, I beat you on this day or whatever. So yeah, the stress that you mentioned, I was actually always very, very stressed before games, whether it was a school game, a club game, provincial game, a test match. I was always very stressed. And I suppose through time, I kind of I was able to get into a routine that I was comfortable with, that helped to de-stress the situation. And I suppose from my point of view as well, I had kind of a way of not showing that I'm stressed and dealing with it so that it doesn't influence other guys and teammates. But yeah, I was always extremely stressed before games, and I found my comfort zone once the first, when the first kickoff, then you're in it, then you can do something about it, and then I felt comfortable. But it's knowing that there's a lot of expectations before the game on the team and on you personally, and you can't do anything about it at that stage. You can only do something about it when the game starts. So again, coming back to how did I deal with that, was I found a routine that I could stick to, that I felt comfortable with, and that helped me to de-stress. And also the preparation. If you're well prepared, then you're just naturally less stressed about the situation. So prepare really well, know what's expected of you, know what your job is, and then once that's sorted, then you just need to go and implement during the game.
What was your routine?
So again, whether it was, and it differed from when we played provincial games to international games, but in a nutshell, I always try to go to bed as late as possible the night before the game, and literally as late as possible, because generally the games would be a little bit later. And I'll take the example of a 5 o'clock game. So the test matches, mostly in South Africa, we kicked off at 5 o'clock. So I would literally go to bed at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock even sometimes, and see if I can get in bed as late as possible, but then try to sleep through till lunchtime. Basically, it was quarter to 12 o'clock. Stay in bed till 12 o'clock. If you wake up earlier, then you watch a bit of rugby. Normally there's rugby on a Saturday morning, and then only at 12 o'clock leave the room. Normally we had like a bit of a team session. Then I'd have my first meal. Let's say at 12:30, you have your first lunch. I'd have a massive lunch that usually contained pasta. And after that, the prep kind of started. I would have some of my strapping done already, then go back to the room, lie in bed again, even have a bit of a nap again if it's possible. But try and do as little as possible. Try not to think about the game too much. And then usually at about 2:30-ish, that's when the team would get together, have the final team talk before we leave to the stadium, get to the stadium, go look at the pitch, see what the weather conditions are like, finish up my strapping. Once my strapping's finished up, then it's warm up time. And basically, when you hit warm up time, that's when you need to get into, okay, what's my job here today? What do I need to do? How's the body feeling? What do I need to work on more? Get back in, do the final tune-ups, and then game starts. So it's kind of just having that routine that helped me. But then sometimes something happens, and then you can't do this, or lunch is late, or someone's strapping in your spot that you were meant to strap, and then you go ballistic as well. But over time I was able to deal with that.
What has been your lowest point, and how did you get from there to where you are now?
Yeah, look, so I had a lot of injuries throughout my career, and a lot of people would see that as a massive negative and as a low point. But I suppose I can sit here now and look back and say that it really was part of my journey and helped me in a way even to achieve what I eventually achieved. And I would never say that I was successful, or that I'm sitting here and I am successful. But I think a lot of people would deem a career like I had as a successful career. Not that I might see it in that way, but throughout that career, I had a lot of low points and a lot of injuries that I had to work through. But like I said, it really shaped me in a way that today I can say that if it was not, or if it were not for those injuries, I probably wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I wouldn't have been able to reach the highs that I did reach, because I didn't experience the lows. Because the lows, I think, is really, they really are important as well. So, so the injuries were kind of part and parcel of it, and I won't see that as the low point in my career. But the losses would be the ones that really hits you hard, especially when you lose games that you're not meant to lose. And from a provincial point of view and a Stormers point of view, I think the semi-final that we lost to the Crusaders at Newlands, I think 2012 it was, that one really hurt, and that was a big disappointment for us as a group, and also for me personally. But the one that sticks out by far would be the game that we lost to Japan at the World Cup in 2015. I was the captain, and you need to take responsibility for that. And again, to see the impact that it had on South Africa and on South Africans and on our fans, and how distraught they felt. And I suppose the abuse that you then got post that as well. Me personally, my family, whatever, that really hit me hard. And I suppose experiencing that made me understand what it really meant eventually to be a Springbok, and the responsibility that you carry. Because it's, they're not angry at you because of the loss. They're angry because you've taken their joy away. You've taken all the things that the Boks have done throughout the years, and all the highs that we've experienced. You're withholding that from them because of a game that you should have won. So that was really tough. But I think what people do miss sometimes, and when I can look back now on that game again, you realize that the Japan team that we lost against wasn't the Japan team that you got used to, that got clapped by 100 points against the All Blacks in 1995. It was a Japan team that was really strong, and 4 years later they made the quarterfinals of the World Cup. So, perspective on things like that is really a good thing. And again, that might have been a low in my career, but again, I was able to learn through that, and sometimes it takes a couple of years before you actually see the benefits of it. But I can sit here today and say that I've been able to learn through that. The disappointing thing for me as well was the fact that a week later we played Samoa, we won that game. I broke my jaw and I had to retire from international rugby. So to have two games like that to finish off with was not ideal. But I suppose I'd rather focus on on a lot of the good stuff throughout the 13, 14-year career.
You discussed earlier in our conversation success. How do you actually define success?
Look, I think it's something that I can't sit here today and say whether I'm successful or not. I think success will only you'll only be able to know if you were successful in your life when you're not here anymore. I think it's something that because success can one day you can be successful and the next day you're not. This week you win a game, next week you lose. And so, are you successful? Yes or no? How do you determine that? So I think for me, it's something that you'll only be able to that others will only be able to determine when you are not around anymore. And it needs to be a combination of everything in life. It can't be something that's isolated, in my case, to only rugby. I can't establish whether I'm successful or not purely or only on what I achieved through rugby. It needs to be a combination of everything, your family life, your relationship with in my case, my wife and kids, my parents, my friends, what I did in rugby, how I achieved there, your faith, your everything that you do. I'm in a new role now and a new work totally outside of rugby, and that needs to come into the equation as well when you decide whether you're successful or not. So I think we're so quick to say, yes, this guy is really successful. But then 10 years later, then something happens and then no, he's not successful anymore, kind of thing. So it's something that you establish over time, and it kind of you go up and down, and you just need to be happy with who you are and what you are. The day you say goodbye to Earth. So I suppose that's the way I see it, and it's more of a philosophical view on it. But I think that's life. We can only determine whether we're successful at life when our life is over. So I suppose up until now, I've had highs, I've had lows, and hopefully I can just improve with whatever's left.
Is there a difference in the way you measure success on the field versus in the office?
Yeah, there is. I think the difficult thing of being a professional sportsman, or call it a professional rugby player in South Africa, is that you want to be successful in your career, but then you need to be successful in something else after that as well. Because not a lot of rugby players in South Africa can hang up their boots and then retire throughout. You can retire from rugby, but the vast majority and a very small percentage would be able to retire. We have to find something else that we're passionate about, that can help sustain our lives. And I'm in that phase of my life now. And it is very different. I don't think I'll ever find something that I'll be as passionate about as rugby. It's been my life, all my life, and my passion all my life. And you now need something to substitute that. I don't think anything will be at the same level, but it's being able to find something that you are still passionate about, and that you find purpose in. And once you find that new purpose again, it's then just implementing so many of the things that you did on the rugby field to implement that in your everyday life now in the new job as well. And I'm trying to do that, but it's very different. I spent, what was it? I started playing rugby at the age of 5. I got my first contract at the age of 18. So 13 years that I spent crafting my skill to eventually make it in rugby. And then I played for another 17 years post that. I'm still young in the corporate world and in the commentary world and all of that. But finding my way through that as well.
So what's the next step in your journey?
Yeah, so I'm currently, as mentioned now, I've got a job with Citadel Wealth Management, which is a wealth management company based in South Africa with offices throughout South Africa, and an office in Guernsey as well. looking after South African, our client base are mostly South Africans, and I head up our philanthropy offering, throughout the company, and it is something that I'm really proud of. In that, I've got the ability now to impact people's lives and to have an influence on people's lives, the same way that I had with rugby, just a totally different platform at the moment. And it's something that I'm enjoying, and like I said, finding my way and trying to grow through that as well. But then also staying involved with rugby through Supersport. I'm still doing some commentating and work from a broadcasting point of view for Supersport. A far easier job than playing, or certainly than coaching, where you just give your opinion on the game. But it's a nice way to still be involved and be closer to the game of rugby.
If you could go back and say one thing to your 16-year-old self, what would it be?
Ben, how old are you now? 16.
Yeah, 16.
It's a long way back for me. You know what? I have a philosophical view on these things, and I'm here today because of the decisions that I made throughout my life. Okay. And I don't think I would change anything. With all the bad stuff that happened throughout my life thus far, and injuries and all of that, you'll take all of that because it shaped you into the person that I am today. So if I have to, give advice to myself I'll probably give myself the advice to start investing earlier, and not because I'm involved with Citadel now, but the money that you lose through time and understanding the compounding effect of investing earlier in your life, I would have been in a far different position today. So that would be, I suppose that would be the message to myself at the age of 16.
You have an extremely interesting view on success and how you define it. Are there any books that you would recommend to me or any other teenagers?
Oh, you're quick on it now. I've got, yes, like I'm actually, so there's one book. There's actually one book by David Goggins that is, I don't know if you've read it. Do you know David Goggins?
Yeah, I know David Goggins.
Yeah. What's the book called again? You Can't Hurt Me. And that to me is just fascinating. The way that guy is able to push himself and his body. And I think there's an element of going a little bit over the top there, which is scary, I think. But there's also an element of massive learning in that you can keep on pushing yourself, whatever might be physically or whatever. So yeah, I'm all about balance, but I like that element of David Goggins just pushing himself to the extreme as well. So that was really good for me. Yes, I can't think at the moment. I like Simon Sinek and his books. I have to think about the others. Yeah.
Well, who inspired you?
Yeah, but let me say those two for now gives you a good base. So You Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, and Simon Sinek. Start with why. So yeah, those two I think is a good start.
Who were your role models as a teenager?
So again, all rugby related, or mostly rugby related. A guy like Donny Gerber, I just love the way that he played. I still think he's the best player ever to play for South Africa. You might not even know who he is, but he was phenomenal. And I always looked at the centers, Tim Horan, Walter Little, Frank Buns, Jason Little, these kind of guys. But Donny Gerber was the one that stood out. Philippe Sella. And also, in the golfing world, Gary Player, I think inspiration as a South African. Ernie Els, I think probably one of the best sportsmen ever to come out of South Africa. So I like the sporty guys. My parents as well. I think you find inspiration from them and the way that they supported me. And then I was extremely fortunate to meet, and I see the book lying there next to you, President Mandela a couple of times, and he was just, I think he epitomizes what the world should be in a way, and being able to forgive and being able to lead and being able to get people to support him. So he was phenomenally inspirational, and I must say one of my most cherished things in my house, besides the people, would be a photo of myself and Nelson Mandela and the Rugby World Cup that he signed and personalized to me. So that's pretty cool.
I'm going to end the interview off with this final question, which I think is very important. But I've seen your Use It or Lose It show. Do you have any jokes you can share? No. This was a serious conversation, so I don't think we could do the jokes now. Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I truly believe you've inspired me and many other teenagers who are going to be watching this. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you very much. Thanks to you and your team for doing this podcast as well, and wishing you all the very best with it, and hopefully some big success.
Cool. Thank you so much. Bye.
Cheers.